Welcome to another video, fresh off an all-nighter. But anyway, so in California, I hear they raised minimum wage to $20 an hour. And that's cool. But the bad news is, in the same motion, in that same sentence, they had fast food business owners already talking about how they about to raise prices. So it balances out. And that's just funny how the governments play people. Sort of like when, like again, $20 an hour. Now, if you live in another state, you might be like, damn, that's a decent amount of money. You can live good where you at off $20 an hour. Exactly. But up here this way, it's nothing. And it's funny because conversely, when people leave Cali and go to other places, some people might be like, yeah, man, rent only such and such amount. But then again, it's like, well, the jobs don't pay much. So it balances out. It ain't no running from capitalism, basically. But don't get me wrong, there is a method to the madness when it comes to teetering, because ultimately it's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep. Now, of course, when you first hear that, you kind of like, what the hell? But when you think about it, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, you got to make something in order to keep something. And this is where the whole focus people tends to rely on, is how much you get paid. But again, it does matter, but it necessarily don't. Because if I'm making $5 million a month and I'm messing off or spending $6-7 million a month, I'm technically in the hole, regardless of what I'm driving or where I'm sleeping at. But I think we kind of already know about that part. I just want to just kind of put the focus on how, in that same swift motion, they want to raise wages, which is all good. Hell yeah. They just bam, well, we're going to raise prices. So shit rolls downhill, that's a saying. And see how they quickly pass the buck? Again, there's no getting away from capitalism. Now, again, there's a method to the madness, because I want to speak on that. Things that I'm adopting and incorporating, sinking into my life like full time, 100%, to where there's no 9 to 5. But again, man, I'm not no investment guru or whatever, but there is certain rules that if you obey, you're gonna be all right, and it's that simple. But now, I know if you done heard before how it's quoted that the money is not really worth anything, and this is all true. And the value is, it teeters, it wavers, and this is all true. And a lot of the times, that fact is used against you. But to no avail, they can't have it both ways. So in the meantime, I'll just put it, there are ways to make that work for you. And I say in the meantime because that's not the overall do good I think us American people need to be looking for. But on the way there, these are things you need to start learning about and adopting. So when you hear words like inflation, or even about the stock market, or even investing, really don't listen to nobody, really read on it. But of course, a lot of us don't like reading, so that's why I'm here to tell you. And I'm not going to go into detail. That's not really what this video is for. It's really just kind of really give you a real general understanding and kind of highlight certain principles we need to stick to. And I say it we because me included. Again, I ain't perfect. I'm walking down the same road as y'all. I'm not at the finish line. preaching and teaching to people. I'm walking down the same road along with you, trust me. And if you know me, I didn't had a bumpy road, more bumpier than average, but who cares? So anyway, where was I? Now, certain principles, like I mentioned, you may hear certain terms, inflation, the stock market, or whatnot. So the ultimate goal eventually would be to, like I said, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. So the old school days of stashing your money under the mattress or even in the safe is not necessarily good. Now, of course, depending on how you make your money, that may be your choice. And that's a whole nother direction I can go as well, but quickly. So now, say if I got $100 and I put it under the mattress, and inflation or the interest rate you may hear is yielding at, or whatever the percentage is, within that year, the buying power of that $100 may only be $92. So yeah, it's still $100 bill, but the buying power done went down. And that's one of the gimmicks that happen, or schisms of money that happen that people don't really realize. So again, yeah, they paying people a little bit more, but then you want to raise the prices. And businesses do this all the time. Even now I hear that, okay, we're not going to raise the prices. We're just going to give you smaller portions or smaller packaging. So now, okay, you're not spending more, but what you currently spending, you're going to get less. That's another trick that's starting to happen. Basically, they just, for the sake of profit, they cutting the dope. I'm going to put it in slang terms. And jeopardizing the integrity. And this comes in all forms of society for profit. And supposedly the government there is to keep all that in check. But if you're paying off the politicians, ain't none of that going to even matter. But again, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. And the idea is now, like I mentioned, as far as inflation and the interest rates, you want to, what they call, hedge against that. And this is where they say, okay, invest in certain stocks and securities and all that to hedge against that or pay more. So essentially what you want to do is start getting your money to work for you. Basically, that principle. Start getting that money to work for you. Now, getting the money to work for you, you're going to have to invest it of some sort. And what you invested in, that's up to you. Just do your research. And then another thing you want to do that I sometimes always have a problem, not even have a problem, not even procrastinate, I just don't do it. I keep it in my head. And as far as just writing down what your expenses are, monthly expenses, and that's in rent, everything, even if you got vices, add that in there. Even though you shouldn't eventually want to function without those vices, and that's another video. But anyway, so eventually you add up what you're spending, then obviously you would want your investment amount to bring in more than what you're spending. And then that way you don't necessarily have to work. Residual income, that's another term. You want to start building residual income, and a lot of that comes from either investing or intellectual property as far as creating. Remember, there's two types of people in this world, and I advocate you to be a creator, but it'll be those that be and those that won't be. And I could be counted either or as one of them too. But again, that's what you want to do. You want to beat the inflation. Not only that, but eventually you want to start accumulating money that you don't necessarily have to work for. But don't get me wrong, some people like getting up to go. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It all depends on what you want to do. But the whole premise is, and what I think the point of this video is you want to be compensated properly for what you do, of course. And this is where the whole argument, one of the arguments come in, because then I didn't even heard people say this. But this one dude was saying about, well, all you're doing is flipping burgers. You shouldn't get paid that much. It don't cost nothing to flip a burger. Anybody could do that. Yeah, and all that is true. But that doesn't mean that person doesn't deserve to be able to provide for their family. And that raises up a whole nother argument about as far as the government and the whole socialist aspect. And does the government have an obligation to take care of the basic needs of their citizens? Remember, I said the basic, not the luxuries, but the basics, as far as the homelessness in medical, education, food, basic level stuff. And that's another question we can talk about in another video. But again, regardless what you do for a living, now again, also in the same token, a doctor or somebody that obviously what they're doing is going to take a lot more training to do, they need to be compensated accordingly, which would be more than somebody that's just lifting boxes or landscaping. But like I said, that person that's doing the landscaping needs to be compensated decently enough to be able to sustain itself and float or whatever. But and that even brings up a different question anyway. But again, like I said, man, in California, that was a cool thing, and that's well overdue. It's not, again, that's not necessarily, anything helps, of course. I'm not gonna say that, but we all know, especially if you're living out here, you're still gonna be struggling, just treading water. You're not on no boat, you're not even swimming, you're just treading water, staying from going under. And you probably got a second or third job and side hustle, and crazy enough, of course, I got all of the above as well, because I need everything, and there's no such thing as too much money. So I'm gonna leave that there with that. But I just wanted to say that, as y'all see, I'm rambling on this morning. I've been up working all night, but again, they raised the wages, but at the same token, they raised the prices. So the buck just got passed, and shit is going to continue to roll downhill. Hit the like and subscribe. Peace.